We are into the second Friday in August already, and that means on the second Friday of the month here on the Inside program, talking with Marshfield Police Chief Rick Gramza. He avails himself to you for your questions and answers here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Summer is fleeting. It seems
no, it's
like you're digging your heels in and saying, well, I guess I should too, because it won't be long here. Fair time. I was talking with people last night and can't believe it.
I know.
But for a lot of people, I think in their minds, fair time for central Wisconsin has been Labor Day weekend. It's a little earlier this year. The kids won't be back in school until after Labor Day.
Right.
But the fair moved up to the third week now, so it just seems like it comes faster, that's all.
It does. The weather's been nice, but when you can go into any of your local stores in June and see back to school lists, I think that it just throws, Halloween decorations are probably out at some places right now, and Christmas is 2 months away. So it's hard to calendar out, so I am hanging on to summer at least till
retail's a different
October.
world. They'll offer you anything anytime.
Right. Yeah.
You can have sandals for Santa, they'll sell it to you if you want to buy it.
Right.
But yeah, it's this time of the year, your guys out there, I would imagine having moving around a little easier in the summertime is one thing, but also people are more active, so your night shift and other times of day become a little more active at times. You see people walking on the streets, where in the wintertime, when it's January, you don't usually go out at night, just because of the temperature situation.
Right. Yeah, it's been, the downtown has been lively, which is great. Wenzel Family Plaza has been active with events, that have, gone through the lunch hour and into the evening, certain days of the week. It's been really good. We've had some events downtown to where we've allowed open containers, and that's gone really well. So, it's been busy, but it's been a good busy, I think. I mean, there hasn't been, knock on wood, anything that's, stretched us beyond our means. So, and it's hard because, a lot of times, when the weather's nice, people enjoy some time off, and we're no different to where it's nice to be able to take a couple days off during the summer. We have a handful of officers who are married to teachers, and and they have summers off, so they enjoy. The officers try to take some of their vacation time over the summer too, but we still, because of that extra volume of people and that just perception of busyness, it's nice to keep your staffing higher or at optimal levels.
Talking with Marshfield Police Chief Rick Gramza. You can too, 384-2191, 384-2191. The summertime here is a busy time because people are more active and moving around in this part of the territory, and there's more outdoor activities and chances of people being hurt. They always talk about the blood drive, running short because people are busy and they're doing things, as opposed to in the wintertime when our activity level seems to slow down a little bit because we're indoors more often. But has there been any, how would I say, problems? Traffic crashes are always going to happen, but even with the detours that we have here, any additional work on that because of the people not paying attention?
Not really. I think the construction companies that the city works with, plus our own public works company or our public works department has, they get it figured out. I think they really do. They try to put warnings out significant, enough in advance to where people begin taking an alternative route. They'll often set up detours before the construction starts just to get that flow. We really haven't had a whole lot of issues that I can even think of that has been brought to my attention. And we just come to accept the fact that this is construction season, and this is the best time to repair the roads, and we have such a short window, it seems as though, to repair those roads in time for winter, because there's very little road work that can happen during the winter. So No, it's been smooth. We communicate well between City Garage and Public Works and ourselves, and we try to get out there and help them if they need certain traffic direction or during busier times. I know for a while, not this year as much, when Upham was being worked on between Central and, say, Grant School, there was some congestion because it was just one-way traffic one way or the other. And for that, we found at times when we got out to clear traffic or we got out to direct traffic, sometimes it causes more problems because then you have more gawkers, more lookers. You know, people slow down, and you want them to slow down in those construction areas. But it's almost like if we just sit back and see the flow of it and not get in the way, we've realized that sometimes, I mean, people just figure it out themselves and they'll take an alternative route because they don't want to wait in the congestion, and they'll try to find a different way. So then I think our main problem then, or our main focus then, is making sure that we're patrolling those alternative routes, because people can be in a hurry, and what normally would take them, you know, not as long if they could go their normal way, they have to now take a detour and will sometimes be in a hurry and maybe be driving on a road or that they're not used to or not accustomed to. So it's just a matter of monitoring those areas for safety.
And when you're one of the residents on the detour,
right?
It can be a little unnerving at times too.
Yeah, especially when you have that volume that you're not used to. I mean, the perception is that vehicles are driving faster than they've ever driven before. Well, there's just a higher volume, and there is times where that is true, and we have speed signs that we'll put up to just maybe remind people of their speed. But it also is a help to us because it tracks and logs everything. We can pull it all up online because the speed signs that we use are all cellular based, and they report back to our computers. So we're able to, if there's a certain time of day where there's a high volume of people exceeding the speed limit, we can see that because it tracks it all, and then we can focus on those times of day for enforcement in those areas, or just for a presence, because sometimes just our presence in that area will slow down the speed.
That doesn't have a camera on that speed trap, does it?
It does. Well, it's speed trap. Come on, Jeff.
Hey, I'll call it like it is. I know, you're just trying
until
to keep
it's past your house, and then it's not a speed trap. It's a nuisance. It's a problem.
That's right.
Yeah. Where are they when we need them? Yeah.
I've heard this story before, he says. Talking with Marshfield Police Chief Rick Gramza. You can too, 384-2191, live here on AM 1450 WDLB. You could be watching us in video, Marshfield Media Access. You can rewatch this interview as well. So you can watch it channel 989 on your Charter Digital tier, or at Marshfield Media Access on the Facebook page. They have access to the videos that they have there as well. Well, Central Avenue, we all knew was coming. It was been years, put off even one from last year when we thought it was going to be, and now it is in the middle of it. And then they shut down Peach, too.
Right, yeah.
Was that... I know, as you said earlier, it's a window of time, but
right.
In the same year, or, I mean, there's only... If you're a local, you understand. You have outside thoroughfares besides Central Avenue. On the east side, you've got Peach. On the west side, it's kind of Lincoln, but that goes
Oak, right.
Yeah, but that goes through a residential area too, where on North Lincoln you can have wide open space there, but it goes right through and then comes out again. And there was a lot of signs out by, was it Washington School, by H and Lincoln out by the farm store.
Yeah, H was closed, so there's a lot more of a volume of traffic going north and south on Lincoln to get through that construction.
It just seems there was a confluence there of no matter which way I go, I can't go the alternate route I would normally go on top of it yet.
Right. Yeah, the nice thing about Central is that they've been able to keep it open to through traffic the whole time. I mean, that's a rarity. I think even though it's a state highway, it's still a rarity that you can, when you're working that big of a project, to keep it open. And I think that probably, it obviously caused for I won't say a delay, but a longer project because they wanted to keep it open to traffic. So if they would have just shut it down from Arnold north to, say, Grant or wherever that section is where they're going to, I mean, at that point, maybe it would have been done by now. I really don't know. But just for that convenience purpose, you try to keep it open and allow people to not have to alter their route of travel, and you still want to keep truck routes. I mean, so truck routes, that's a big thing. I mean, to keep the trucks to be able to be on Central Avenue, if you want to get them off, you can't throw them on a non-truck route, so they would have had to detour significantly, and it would have been difficult because you would have been sending them up probably, Oak to Upham, and then, back down to 97 or Oak up to McMillan, but then you couldn't do that necessarily on the east side because parts of McMillan and the bridge were shut down.
See what I mean? It's like Tetris around here this past month.
Yeah, if we could just switch and have 3 months of winter and 9 months of summer, that would be nice. But I haven't figured that out yet.
That's why the roads keep repaired, keep needing to be repaired. Like I said, I have my outdoor thermostat. Today, when we're talking here, for those of you watching on video, beautiful. It's been a great start to the morning, nice and cool in the morning and mid-70s in the afternoon. My outdoor thermostat's working fine. But I don't have a setting on that is accurate from time to time. But these routes around the area, like you said, people get in a hurry and are trying to get from point A to point B and getting frustrated from time to time with that. I don't know how to word this, but in a construction zone is different. But if you initiate a stop, I don't know where is a safe area. I mean, if you're in a construction zone and they stop right there, this could be a real bollocks up.
Right.
I mean, I could go around the corner, I suppose, off of Central, or I could go somewhere driveway or something along that line. But what is your prescribed out of what you would consider out of the way? I don't know. How do you word that?
Yeah, well, hopefully our officers are using their judgment and maybe initiating that traffic stop once they've completed or gotten all the way through the construction, especially when we're only talking 7 blocks or so, 8 blocks. But there are times where that doesn't happen, and obviously it's going to completely congest that area. So the best thing to do is if somebody is being stopped in a construction zone and there's no place to safely pull off, I would say, pull off on the next available street that's open, the next cross street, or just if it's 2 or 3 blocks up before the construction ends, just wait until you are out of that construction zone and then pull over as you normally would. But most of our officers, I think, when they're making traffic stops in a construction zone, they'll actually wait until they're through that construction zone before they initiate the traffic stop.
Pulling into the driveway of a business, is that good, bad, or does it matter? I mean, sometimes I could get off of the road totally. I'm just pull over here like a business driveway.
Sure. Yeah. In my opinion, it doesn't matter. I mean, I'd rather have them off the road. I know some feel that it's that the businesses might not like it. And there's times where, we've had people from businesses come out to the officer and just ask how long it's going to be, or could you move it on to the side of the road possibly. And often we'll just, most traffic stops take 5 minutes, so it's usually not significant. But there's times where if it leads into something bigger, we don't want to inconvenience a business. We don't want to deter customers from coming to that business. A lot of times, if you see a traffic stop in the parking lot of a business, you either avoid it or you're attracted to it and want to see what's going on. So most traffic stops, if I want to call them routine traffic stops, just for an equipment warning or maybe for a speed violation or something like that, really don't take much more than 5 minutes for us to check what we need to check, make the decision on issuing a citation or a warning, and then issuing that. It's streamlined a lot with computers and with technology. It used to take probably 10 to 15 minutes, and that's probably been cut in half.
When you initiate a traffic stop, what is the procedure as to lights? Is audio, like siren, automatic as well? Just a quick attention getter, so to speak? Is that procedure? Or is there one?
Yeah, I mean, lights and siren are what we use in emergency mode. If we're trying to traffic stop, oftentimes we may just use our lights if that's sufficient enough. If the person isn't pulling over, then we'll, blip our siren or turn our siren on. If it's somebody that we have to pursue, not because they're fleeing us, but maybe because if we're running stationary radar, which it means, we're parked somewhere and we're trying to capture people, say, heading north on Highway 13, they're driving at, say 50, 60 miles an hour. We're starting from a stopped position. So if we get them speeding and we have to now catch up to them, we have to do it safely, but we also may have to drive a quarter or half mile to catch up to them. So we'll often use our lights and siren in those cases. Yeah, the best way to safely stop them, both for our safety so that vehicles that we're not stopping but are just in our way move out of the way, but then also so that the individual who we're trying to stop pulls over as soon as possible.
I put my arm out the window, tried to wave him around, but he still pulled in behind me. Go ahead, I'm clear. I don't know, you're the guy. I'm like, oh, my heart sunk.
Yeah, they actually have some technology out there too, to where I've heard of it, I haven't seen it, but it's really low frequency speakers. They call them like rumblers. And you can officers can hit that and it'll send out such a low frequency bass or vibration that it'll shake the individual's car. And that's a way to kind of get their attention as well. If the lights and siren aren't working, sometimes you can use this.
I think I was next to that kid on Central Avenue one day. Yeah, that baby cranked up. My windows were rattling.
Sure. Yeah, this is just that real low frequency. It's almost like a low frequency bass, but it'll actually, almost feel like your car is vibrating or rumbling because of that low frequency.
And the point is to get you to look up.
To get you, to catch your attention, whether we just need you to move out of the way or we need you to stop and, pull over because we're trying to have a discussion with you. So, but that's nothing that we've gotten yet, no technology, but I was just at a conference this past week and there's a couple officers that were talking about having them, or a couple chiefs that were talking about having them on some of their squads, and that they're very effective in getting the attention of somebody who might not be looking in their rearview mirror or might have their own radio on and windows up to where they're not hearing a siren behind them. And a lot of times if we're driving, you hear the siren, but the sound, you're driving. So, you're not necessarily driving beyond the sound of the siren, but the siren has a tendency to be louder when you're behind the vehicle than when you're in front of the vehicle. The siren, even though our siren boxes are in the grills of our vehicle, as you're moving forward, obviously the sound isn't being thrown, yards in advance.
Well, it would be a way to get a texter's attention.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Rattle his cage. Uh-oh.
Right. Yeah, it's a technology that I'd like to see and see talk to some agencies a little bit more to see if it is effective. But for the most part, with our lights and siren, we haven't had issues with vehicles pulling over. There's been a couple that I remember over the years that we almost pursued into Spencer because they weren't recognizing that we were behind them. Remember one guy was shaving or brushing his teeth as he was driving, and it was just, there's another time where, sometimes if we try to stop a semi or, some of these wide load modular home, trucks, some of the heavy trucks have a hard time seeing us because, sometimes we could get too close behind them to where they can't see us. Or it's hard to, if you're in behind them, to get out into a little bit of the passing lane or into that lane of traffic to where they can see you in their side view mirror, and they're not going to necessarily hear the siren when you're driving a semi unless their windows are down. So it can be challenging sometimes to stop some vehicles and to get their attention.
Well, there's a case. What would you do if you're driving driving a truck with a modular home on the back? You're not going to pull over. You could get close to the ditch and that thing falls in.
Yeah.
So I'd have to get to some spot where it would be wide enough, and we don't have a lot of waysides anymore or truck way stations.
No, there's enough. The shoulders of the road are fairly wide, but not obviously for the whole vehicle. So you're still partially on the roadway, and we'll often, and that's why it's important that we, create that safe distance between us and the vehicle, and direct the traffic as best as we can, and that we, just create that safe environment for them. And a lot of times, once you have a traffic stop, vehicles will slow down. Thankfully, Sometimes they don't if they're not paying attention, but most times they'll slow down and proceed with caution around you while you're performing that traffic stop. But yeah, it can get kind of dangerous for both the driver that we're stopping and for us.
And that's why I brought it up, because even as an individual passenger car in any given urban area, where is a good, I don't want you to think I'm fleeing, but on the other hand, this doesn't seem safe to me or you here. So,
Right.
And individual businesses, some of them get agitated, others like the attention.
Yeah, a lot of that is put on the officer to make sure that they're performing their traffic stop in a smart location. If they know their community and their environment that they're in, and they see a road coming up, I guess I would initiate the traffic stop when I see that side road, and I want them to pull off to that side road. There's other times where if you're working at night, it's good to try to make a traffic stop in a well-lit area so that they can see us, but then we can also see them and inside the passenger compartment of the vehicle, and make sure that it's safe. We want them to be safe, but obviously we want to keep ourselves safe as well. And a lot of times that location selection by the officers is crucial.
Talking with Marshfield Police Chief Rick Gramza here on today's Insight program. You can too, 384-2191, 384-2191. Did you order your vehicles with the big spotlight on the side? That used to be standard procedure, where the handheld up by the door bar?
Sometimes they come standard with that. Sometimes we have to have them installed after the fact. But yeah, we have a couple F-150s that will be going online probably at the end of the year, and we're kind of challenged with those because I think it's a A-pillar that is narrow, and the way that the interior is, it's going to make it very hard to have one of those installed. So we may just put some, have like a grill guard on it, and since it's a little higher up in the air, put some spotlights in the grill guard so that it'll illuminate the vehicle. A lot of times we'll use that handheld floodlight, or that, not handheld, but that floodlight that's mounted on the vehicle to actually check things to the right or left of us when we're driving, to check alleyways, to illuminate a scene that's we can't really get a good angle at with the headlights, or with what we call our takedown lights, is the white lights that we have in the light bar. But we've talked about if we can't actually install one of those lights next to the driver's side, that we might just put a spotlight, just a plug-in spotlight in each of those squads, so that the officer has access to something nice and bright to be able to illuminate an area that they're having a hard time seeing.
With your department going to SUVs and pickups, you're at an angle where sometimes these vehicles you wouldn't be able to get into it anyway. I mean, you have to go back a fair distance in order to get to be able to see.
Yeah. Yeah, and distance is good sometimes. I mean, that gives us the ability to watch the operator's movements. I mean, there's some people that we have contact with that make a lot of bad choices or aren't making good choices, and are need to be monitored and watched, and make sure that it's a safe approach that our officers are taking, whether it's just for a routine traffic stop or something more significant. So distance is always our friend, and if we start seeing something that's uncomfortable, I mean, the first action we often take is to create more distance. Obviously, if we're in danger, I mean, the more distance, the better. So we train our officers to make sure that they have a safe, comfortable distance, not necessarily right up on the vehicle. I've seen videos and situations where if a police vehicle is too close to the individual, one way to take the police out of commission and flee them is to throw it in reverse and back up and hit the squad, cause the airbags to possibly go off, which sometimes causes the vehicle to not be driven, or at least now causes you to have to get rid of the airbag before you can pursue it. So usually on a rear end collision, you're not going to have airbags go off, but it's a front end collision for that squad. So just having that distance is, again, a way to, I guess, minimize the potential of that happening.
And with the lights and such, I guess maybe people watch too much TV. You get like my wife, you pull her over and she's got her hands up like it's Ferguson, Missouri. She's all, oh, it's like, don't grab anything, don't touch anything until you get up here and tell me what it is you want, and then you can watch me do it. Then watch where my hands are. I said, it's not quite like that uptight, but I don't know. Maybe you would prefer that, to know where everybody's hands are at any given time. I don't know.
Absolutely. I mean, the hands are what's going to potentially hurt somebody. And one thing, if you take a concealed carry class, and which they have all over, and there's a lot of concealed carry holders out there, one of the things that most of the instructors will teach their students is to keep your hands on the steering wheel until the officer comes up to the vehicle. Because, sometimes people will be reaching in the back seat for their purse, or they'll be reaching underneath for their wallet, or they'll be reaching into the glove box. And
I've been guilty of that. Yeah. I'm getting ready because I know what you're going to ask me.
And what that...
don't ask me how I know, but...
practice.
Yeah.
What that's called is furtive movement, and that's just suspicious or unknown movements. What that actually allows us to do is, if we see some suspicious or furtive or unknown movements within the vehicle, that gives us the right to be able to search that area, pull you out of the vehicle, search you, and search that area without your consent or permission, because you're creating a situation that could put us in danger. Whether you're hiding evidence, whether you're retrieving a gun, whether you're merely looking for your insurance card because you know you're going to be asked for it. Either way, it's suspicious enough to where the courts have said that allows us into that vehicle and search it. So, for everybody that's witness or listening, the best interest, in your best interest, keep your hands on the steering wheel and just wait for instructions if you're pulled over on a traffic stop.
But you would need dash cam video. Otherwise, it'd be my word against yours as to why you were initiating a search without a warrant. If
we wouldn't need dash cam video. I mean, it helps, but we wouldn't need it. I mean, we could say, well, all we have to do is articulate in our report the movements that we saw and witnessed and why we chose to do that. But if we didn't have dash cam video, we could still do it.
Talking with Marshfield Police Chief Rick Gramza this first Friday in the month of, second Friday, and the time goes by here. Second Friday in the month of August, you can too. 384-2191, 384-2191. We're live on AM 1450 WDLB. You may be watching us on video through Marshfield Media Access on Channel 989 on your Charter Digital tier, or through their Facebook page, Marshfield Media Access. We'll be back to talk more here in just a moment. AM 1450 WDLB's Inside program for the second Friday in the month of August, which may not be significant to you in a sense, but for us here on Marshfield Media Access, this is when our program is being recorded for your video consumption. Talking with Marshfield Police Chief Rick Gramza on the second Friday of the month and availing himself to your calls and comments at 384-2191, 384-2191. You said something earlier in our conversation that caught my ear, and I believe you referred to it as open container.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a big fan of open containers. Yeah, I've opened a few just this week, as a matter of fact. But talking with the people, Hub City Days was the first opportunity we had now where we have open container of alcohol on the streets allowed in certain situations, or what are, you have private homes and private land, but you also have city parks that you can have beer on, and probably mixed drink too if you brought your flask along. I don't know that they're going to come over there and bust you for that. So, but having it as a open container outside of what used to be fenced-in areas at festivals was always an issue. But Hub City Days might have been the first when we allowed open containers?
Yeah, we first tried it with the downtown wine walk that United Way held in May over Mother's Day weekend, and it went really well. The reason I wanted to, I've had a lot of discussions with downtown businesses, with businesses that get these temporary licenses, and we've just had some of those discussions regarding what their purpose is, what our goal is, and just trying to see where that happy medium is. I mean, our goal is obviously just safe alcohol consumption, responsible consumption. Their goal is to obviously have a safe event, but yet they want it to be lucrative and enjoyable. And what we have said is, let's see how we can, merge those two ideas. So previously, you couldn't walk on the sidewalks, streets, public property with an open container unless it was in a park. You couldn't do it in a park if there was a licensed event going on in the park. So, I mean, they would kind of, that would prohibit one from doing that. So what we need to do is in each of those events, if we want there to be open containers, we have to request from City Council them to more or less waive the ordinance temporarily for that event. So the big event, which was recent Hub City Days, what we did is we kind of outlined the area that Hub City Days was going to be held in, pretty much veterans to 7th or 8th, and Chestnut to Maple for the most part. And with City Council approval, we were able to allow for people to walk around with an alcoholic beverage in that area, where previously, if you wanted one, you would have to go down to the beer tent, drink it in the beer tent, and then leave. What this did, I think, is, and it went very well. It was very successful. What this did is it didn't force people to have to chug a drink when they just needed to go to a porta potty, or whether they wanted to walk around the car show. It was just during that car show hours from roughly 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. But with the graciousness of City Council, and this is still kind of a trial time. I mean, if things go bad, I mean, we'll just stop it. But the goal is to have safe, responsible consumption of alcohol, and binge drinking or drinking fast in a small period of time is counterproductive to safe and responsible serving practices and consumption practices. So it went well. I think our goal is to approach City Council this next Tuesday and see if they're willing to open up the fairgrounds to that for the Central Wisconsin State Fair. That way an individual would be able to buy a beer at Lions Club, American Legion, Curling Club, wherever, and be able to leave that caged in or fenced in or closed off area and walk through the big round barn or walk through the midway with that beverage and actually be able to enjoy it with their family or friends, as opposed to having to drink it maybe faster than they'd like to and then catch up with the people, or make those maybe individuals who are underage wait outside of those establishments while somebody had a beverage. So there still won't be able to be underagers inside of those establishments, when it comes to just serving. I mean, I know some of them serve food and it's a little different with that. But yeah, our goal is safe consumption. The two events that we've done it at so far have gone very well, and I have no reason to believe that the fair wouldn't be the same way.
We're talking about open container changes here in the law. For instance, at Hub City Days, there was still fence around the area that was the street dance, and you still needed a band in order to get to the place. So you're policing the sale. Does that then fall upon the buyer as to if an underage person gets? One of the first things you're going to ask is, where'd you get it from?
Right.
I don't know if they're going to tell you, but, I'll be honest. But on the other hand, that's a thing that you're going to have to deal with at some point if it ever does happen.
Right.
Is that you're keeping an eye on who's buying,
right,
but who's consuming
right.
is...
Right. Yep. So that's why we do the wristbands, is so that we can know if somebody's wearing a wristband, their ID has been checked, or it's obvious that they're over 21. If we see somebody walking around without a wristband but with an alcoholic beverage, and it might be somebody who's 50 years old, we're going to have them discard the beverage or we'll walk them to a place where they can get a wristband and make sure they get the wristband. So I mean, it's our goal to make sure, you know, that only those who are of legal drinking age are consuming, and if we find somebody who's underage consuming, we would ask them where they got it. They may or may not tell us where they got it. We're still going to have to prove that they got it there. And if they were served by, say, an establishment without having a wristband on, then we would, you know, obviously cite both the establishment and the individual for consuming underage. If we weren't able to establish where they had received the alcoholic beverage from, if they weren't willing to tell us or we didn't witness anything, we would probably just cite them for underage consumption or possession. So, I mean, it's we haven't had those situations yet. I'm sure that something will come up over over these situations to where somebody is underage. But honestly, I think that from what I've heard from the community, this is well received and appreciated, the fact that they have a little bit more freedom to be able to walk around with a beverage, and I don't think that they want to ruin it by, you know, giving underagers a beverage or cheating the system in some way. So part of it is just education and making sure people are getting their wristbands and making sure that they're behaving. I mean, you can't still, you know, drink to such an excess to where you're causing a nuisance or being disorderly. I mean, that's, you know, I mean, this isn't, there's still more or less public intoxication concerns that we monitor, but we are monitoring those whether they're all caged up in, whether they're all caged up or fenced up in an area, or whether they're walking freely like we're attempting to have happen now.
Well, one thing I wanted to make clear, and you just said it, that I reiterate here, is that people, for when you're at the fair, if you have a drink in your hand, you better have a wristband on,
Right.
or somebody's going to ask you. Even if somebody else bought it for you and brought it out, you have to go get a band.
Right.
Because as your officers are looking, they don't know.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. You'll still need to get that wristband. And even if you're not the one making that purchase, I mean, you don't have to pay for a wristband. I mean, they just hand out the wristbands, but that just ensures us that you've been carded and that you're of legal drinking age.
Just to avoid any issues there, keep in mind here as fair time comes up. Let's go to the phone. Jen, go ahead. You're on the air. Gene.
Yes, I have a question. Is it a Wisconsin law that you have to have your driver's license scanned at a grocery store when you're buying liquor?
To the best of my knowledge, I don't think it's a law. I know that it's just a common practice sometimes for certain businesses. It might just be part of their, normal policies or procedures, but I don't believe it's a law that your ID has to be scanned.
Yeah, they scanned my driver's license at the Pick and Save, and I asked why they were doing it because, I mean, your date of birth is on there, your driver's license number is on there. What do they do with that information? And the lady the clerk next to where I was checking out, said it's a Wisconsin law, and she got kind of nasty.
Oh, yeah, I don't believe it's a Wisconsin law. I just believe that it's, they just might have the technology to scan your ID. And now, and it might be, depending on, in some places, and I don't believe this is Pick and Save, but in some places it might be based on the quantity you're, purchasing or what you're possessing. I know that I believe at Festival
just a bottle
Foods,
of wine.
Right? Yeah, I know at Festival Foods, if you're buying a keg of beer, they'll often make a photocopy of your driver's license, because if all of a sudden the police confiscate that keg at a underage drinking party, we can go back to Festival and they'll say, well, this is the individual we sold it to. Uh-huh. And it's just for accountability practices on their end, because because they're on the hook then at that point. And yeah, the bottle of wine doesn't really fit this explanation that I'm giving, but they're on the hook if they have to prove that they didn't sell it to an underage person if we confiscate it from underage people. So that's their practice and policy. And again, I don't know if that's in law as to that, but yeah, I've never heard of that before. Yeah, I've never heard of that before.
It bothers me that they have that information, and what do they do with, the driver's license information?
Yeah, a lot of times, I mean, obviously that, if somebody checks your ID, they're going to punch in the date of birth accurately.
Right.
And, if you pay with a credit card, your name and date of birth are now kind of together because it's the same transaction. But maybe it's just a new technology they're using, and but no, I don't believe it's a state law that they have to actually scan it, because I know that there's a lot of places that don't have that technology to be able to scan it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I have one other question. Can anything be done about the sirens going off after the fact from the dispatch center in Rapids?
Yeah,
I'm
I noticed.
Hang up now and just listen.
Yeah, I noticed that happened on this last storm, and there was a little bit of a cell that was starting to expand to the west of the city, and I think we got a little bit more rain and wind from that one, but it wasn't as significant as the one that had just passed through. I recognize too that delay in this last storm that went through. I think it was it Wednesday night, and that kind of perked my interest too as to why that delay was. I mean, it went off, and I'm like, well, from the looks of the radar, the worst is past us, and that's often based on when a request is made by, if that, a lot of times if the severe thunderstorm warning is in effect, we'll set off the sirens, and that'll usually come from our request. If the severe thunderstorm warning was extended, maybe they just hit it one more time. I don't know if it went off previous to that or if that was just the one time that it went off. That's the only time that I heard it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that was the only time it went off. I believe I was in my office when it may have gone off the first time and the storms were pretty heavy, but then I heard it come off go off either the first time or a second time later in that day.
I saw you wince because I know you and I have talked about this many times over and over again, and I've said, people, you've heard them say here on the program that they'll listen. If people say, well, what's the siren for? Well, so you tune into media and know what's going on, and I'm standing there in my skivvies at home when the siren goes off, and people are tuning into the radio station. Oh, there's music, and then they call me all mad because I'm not telling them why.
Right.
So, there's been some time-to-time issues with that. I just hope that if anything serious does happen, that we don't have people who are just blowing it off and saying, they're just, I can't trust that thing. They cried wolf too many times when this thing doesn't work and nobody's paying attention to what's going on.
Yeah, no, yeah. So this last time, I really don't have an explanation for that. I know it's very subjective, and maybe we just need to make it more clear and concise. And if there's a severe thunderstorm warning that's issued for our area, maybe we set it off. And the challenges with that, I mean, sometimes we're under severe thunderstorm warnings and they miss us, or it ends up just passing to the north or south of us, and it doesn't hit the city. So I mean, if you look at the science of being a meteorologist and how often they're wrong, maybe it's better to set it off, and if nothing happens, nothing happens. But then I know that we'd have either callers, and I don't blame them, but we'd have either callers or we'd have people talking on social media saying, well, nothing happened, and you told us that, something was happening. So how and again, it's very subjective. We could either just say anytime that there's a warning, whether it's a tornado warning or a severe thunderstorm warning, which is a high probability of a tornado, then we just set them off blanketly, and we just tell dispatch to do that. A lot of times they leave it up to our shift commanders. Our shift commanders will look at the radar and say, okay, well, do we set it off right now? It doesn't look like it's that bad. It looks like it may miss us based on the tracking, and all of a sudden it blows up, so and becomes bigger or shrinks down and dissipates. And it's kind of that, it's a guessing game at times.
Well, we've had problems, or this originated when dispatch was consolidated in Wisconsin Rapids to where Wood County would set it off. Well, you got one that's right here. I'm across the street to Marathon County, which has little effect on down along the Adams County line where Wisconsin Rapids is close to. And so we've kind of put that into your hands here as far as the police department to say when should we or shouldn't we. But Hey, you made a false arrest on Mark Holly with the donut caper there. Maybe you should put him in charge.
No, that was not a false arrest. I'll stand behind that all day long. And one of the, and our dispatch center is good, and they've come a long way since we've had our central dispatch center. But again, just to kind of paint the picture of what used to be and where we're at now, and technology helps us out quite a bit. I mean, we're able to do more in our squads than we could when we had our own dispatch center. We're able to do more data entry in our squads and on our computers and even on our phones that's police related than we could before when we had our own dispatch center. But when we had our own dispatch center, we always had a minimum of 2 dispatchers working. Wisconsin Rapids had their own dispatch center, and they had a minimum of 2 dispatchers working. Wood County had their own dispatch center, and they had a minimum of 3 dispatchers working. So countywide, we had 7 dispatchers minimum working at all times. When we consolidated, right now, they at minimum, they'll have 4 dispatchers working for the whole county. Sometimes they'll have up to 6, but they can operate with 4 dispatchers, which means that there's really 1 for the county, 1 for Rapids, 1 for Marshfield, and 1 that kind of floats. Well, you also have to, Wood County had more because they would also dispatch because like Nakusa, Port Edwards, Grand Rapids, Pittsville, they didn't have their own dispatch centers, so they would use the sheriff's department. So now you're looking at all of those different villages or towns or municipalities that are calling into now one central that operates, that could operate on 4 dispatchers, where before the minimum may have been 7 in the county. Granted, a lot of their duties have been taken away, but now there's more that is placed on a fewer number of people, and to now put something, have them continually monitor the weather and continually monitor our Crime Stoppers information that's coming in, and continually answer all of 911 and non-emergency calls, and now dispatch officers out and then check on officers that have been at a location for a long time, or run their information that they need, whether it's a traffic stop or victims information, or do this data entry. I mean, it's a very, very chaotic environment at times in the dispatch center. And like I said, sometimes they have 6. I think they can have up to 8 dispatchers working at once if they have an event going on and they have enough pods and everything available. So it's a nice center that they have down there right now. They're very well trained, but despite what we've taken on ourselves with technology, a lot is placed on a less number of people. So, I mean, it's kind of give and take with that. But, when we did have our own dispatch center, we had 2 individuals dedicated to the city 24/7.
Well, as far as taking on, I mean, that's business anywhere today.
Mm-hmm.
There used to be 25, now there's 5. That's the way the business has gone.
Right.
But I want to make it clear, as you were trying to tell me here, that the business of policing is being taken care of. There's no dispute about that.
Yeah. Right.
It's this nuisance siren thing that people seem to get all twisted up about here as to whether or not it's...
Yeah, and it's... Unfortunately, it can be comical at times. I can't think of a better word. I mean, when I heard it go off, I actually looked out my living room window, and I could see blue sky, and I thought, I'm going to hear about this. I'm going to hear about this, and I was tempted to reach out to our on-duty shift commander just to learn why, what caused it to go off, but I knew at that time of day, it's a busy time of day, and I figured I'd catch him some other time and ask him. But in that instant, I thought, I wonder what's coming up. And then I pulled up my radar, and I could see a cell kind of in the maybe Loyal Greenwood area that was coming towards Marshfield that looked like it was growing a little bit, but I really couldn't tell. But it paled in comparison to what had just come through.
I'm not sure if I say it's nice to know you're no different than the rest of us, standing there looking at the sky going, what?
Scratching my head. I was different because I wasn't in my skivvies like you always claim to be, which I guess I should be thankful.
Let's rephrase that. Pajamas. That's a mental picture nobody wants to see right now. So
I should be thankful that you're fully clothed today. I guess
I never come to work without them, at least up to this point. I've been in a hurry before.
Thank you for that.
Maybe had my tie around my head, but I didn't have pants on anyway. Talking with Marshfield Police Chief Rick Gramza here on this second Friday in August. We'll wrap up our conversation after this. AM 1450 WDLB's Insight program coming to you live here the second Friday in August on the 9th. This program was recorded for those of you watching us on video here. I have to make that clear because a lot of the things, if not most, if not all for that matter, of the things we talked about have already been resolved, so to speak, here by the time you watch this video as we're recording this live on the second Friday in August. Some of the events that we've talked about are already probably by and over with, and you're wondering, well, what was that all about? Well, it's still in front of us yet, and we don't know the results as you do. And it'd be nice to do that with the lotto
Right.
or the horse track. I could know how this is going to come out ahead of time. This is the time of the year now when school will be back in again. We talked about school supplies and fill the bus and all of those things going on around the area. That's part of that, and your liaison will be back in business again. Is it just the high school, or do you have people in other schools around the city?
Yeah, we have one in the high school, one in the middle school. The middle school officer has a tendency to, respond to any concerns or complaints at the elementary schools, but then the high school will pick them up as well and kind of help them. But yeah, we just ask people to slow down in those school zones, to keep an eye out for kids, for bicyclists. Just be safe out there. Assume that they don't see you. A lot of times kids, if they don't have that maybe maturity or that experience, might just walk out into an intersection assuming that you're seeing them and going to stop. So it's just a matter of being extra observant and vigilant in those school zones. Just be safe, watch for the kids, and we are at the schools for the school safety or student safety.
Do you patrol extra during that time, or just in more so closer to those proximities?
No, we definitely patrol more so. We have more officers on. A lot of times we'll get the officers out of the squads and actually, patrol on foot in those areas. Our school crossing guards will be starting in those areas, and you'll see them as well. So we do really try to increase enforcement and increase presence in the schools and around the schools. There's each school is kind of like its own little city in effect, especially, the high school is 1,400 plus when you're talking staff and students. And that's the size of some villages in the area. So, having an officer dedicated just to that location we feel is very important, and that's a program that's never going to go away.
All right. Well, good to talk to you again.
Yeah,
Thank you for making yourself available to us here. Marshfield Police Chief Rick Gramza on this second Friday in the month of August here, talking on AM 1450 WDLB's Insight program. He will be back monthly. Mayor Bob McManus on the first Friday of the month, and the final Friday of the month is Sheriff Sean Becker. So stay with us here on WDLB's Insight on Marshfield Media Access as well.